Welcome back, my people. This is lesson 2 in module 2. I wanted to do a quick video on planning for major life events. All right. So, major life events are not something that is talked about often in terms of how you plan for them. And so, sometimes, especially like I know with my first daughter, my wife and I, she was kind of unexpected. So we had to, make some adjustments on the fly. Our second daughter was definitely planned for, and our son was definitely planned for. And we were able to make financial adjustments in preparation. Sometimes you can have that luxury, and other times you don't. But I wanted to go through just some basic things just to make you aware of some things that you need to be thinking about as major life events and how they can impact your finances and how you should be preparing for them. Now, I have talked on these topics within the primary modules, not necessarily primary modules of Exonomics, but and the Exonomics Momentum. So this the community and the whole newbie roadmaps and everything like that are technically a part of helping you keep momentum. And so when I originally designed Exonomics, it was we go through the 17-week program and then we move into Exonomics Momentum, and I provide you with information to continue to help you keep the momentum. So so identifying major life events, common events, we've got marriage, having a child, buying a home, education expense. How do these impact financial planning? So let's kind of jump in. So marriage and financial plan and financial partnership rather. So when you are getting married and you're combining your finances, it is a major thing. Because you have been managing your money yourself this whole time. So you need to identify as a couple how you're going to do this. Is something that needs to be talked about, because between money and sex, those are the top two reasons why there is divorce. And combining your finances, to me, as a believer, I believe that you should combine your finances. That's me as a believer. It might not be your personal preference, and however you want to do it is fine. Because I have, and I'm not judging anybody. We do the planning around however you want it done. Because I have clients that do this and clients that don't do this. I have clients that have their spouse's last name and clients that don't have their spouse's last name. It's a preference for you, your life, and your household. So don't let anybody judge you. It's what works for you guys. But I think that one of the easiest strategies is to identify who that person is that's good with money, who's going to take an interest in monitoring it, meeting with the advisor on a regular, getting the financial information, setting up the investment accounts, and making sure that money is going where it's supposed to go. And then the other person knows kind of what they're able to work with. So, plus I believe from a biblical standpoint that because the Bible says the two become one, that everything should be one. Now, if you're not going to have your spouse, if you're not going to have joint stuff, which means that, again, kind of thinking from a planning standpoint, God forbid if something happens, the everything that's jointly owned goes to the surviving spouse. If you have accounts that are not jointly owned, then you need to make sure that your spouse is a POD, a payable on death beneficiary of your accounts. You need to create a budget and set financial goals as a couple. So you may have your own personal goals, but now you got a goal as a couple. So when do you both want to retire? What are some of the short-term goals, and how are those things going to play in? Can we fund everything at one time, or do we really need to prioritize and say, okay, because I want these 6 things and you want these 10 things, so let's really prioritize. So we'll tackle these 2 first, and then we'll kind of go to the other. So you want to come together on that, and then discussing financial values and habits. How did you guys grow up with money? What was the conversation with money like in your household? The conversation between with money and how I grew up versus how my wife grew up, completely different. My grandfather sat me down and showed me how to balance a checkbook and his budgets and everything like that. And my dad was very vocal, about what he was doing with his money and the debt that we had and that we couldn't pay for things and all this other stuff. Versus money was not a conversation in my wife's household. So, really identifying, how you guys are going to do this, especially when the time comes for you to have children, because when children come in, more is caught than taught. So what do you want your children to understand and know about money? Right. So when it comes to kids, Where, childcare, how is that going to work? Because childcare, you need to, my opinion, when you know that you're pregnant, you probably want to start putting money aside for daycare, because daycare costs have gotten outrageous at this point. And so you're still going to need to be able to pursue your career goals and all those things. And just having, and some people can do it, having, kids home, all the time before they start school. God bless you, because I couldn't do it, So before we had the funds to be able to pay for daycare out of pocket, because some of you may know my story, as I talked about it in the primary course of Exonomics. We were on food stamps and WIC and government assistance and all that stuff. So we were always trying to make sure that our daughter had somewhere to go that was nice, clean, and they were going to learn something, because my wife and I really needed to be out there hustling and grinding, doing what we need to do to get to where we are right now. So what does that look like? What does childcare look like for you guys? What does education look like? Are you sending the kids to college? Are you paying for college? How much of college do you want to pay for? Do you want to try to pay for a 100% of the college? Do you want to pay for 50%, 20% of it? What's realistic for you to do? Do you even want to do anything for the kids' college? Healthcare, how is this going to impact your insurances and things of that nature? So even when it comes to planning for children, are you doing like, because my wife's a doula, I'm fairly familiar with a lot of this stuff. Are you doing a natural birth? Are you going to the hospital? Are you getting a doula? Are you hiring a doula? Are you going to a place where they have like a natural birthing center where you got to get a midwife? All those different things. So saving for college. If you're saving for college, 529 plans are very big. We'll kind of get into that in the investment section, but Coverdale education savings accounts, they're not as big as they once were. Plus, you can only put $2,000 a year in, but they're not as big as they were. And then adjusting your health insurance and your estate plan. All right. So when you have your child, you're going to need to include them on your health insurance. So your health insurance premiums are going to go up. And so, does the plan that you have, is that the right plan? Do you need to look at it and make an adjustment? Can you do it now? Do you have to wait to the next enrollment period? All these things kind of come into play. And then the estate plan. Hopefully you and your spouse have a will and a financial power of attorney, all those things, which we're going to get into. If you don't, now that you've got the children or the child, how is this impacting things? Who's going to take care of them if, God forbid, something happens to you? So these are things that we're going to talk about when we get into the estate. This is just to kind of get the thoughts moving for major events that can come up in your life. Home ownership, if you're, is a major life adjustment, because sometimes people get into home ownership and it completely rocks their financial world. Why? Because they weren't ready for it. So a lot of times people buy houses and they end up, getting broker because of that. And then they end up losing the house. So you have so many foreclosures and short sales. People lost their house because they didn't plan properly for it. Right. So, and this is why the Bible is so big on planning and being a good financial steward. So which of you is going to build a tower and not count the cost? So that's what preparing for a lot of your financial goals goes back to. So preparing for home ownership, making sure that you have savings after you do your down payment and your closing costs. I know that I just recorded not too long ago, Home Ownership 101, and a series that I'm doing within the Exonomics Momentum that's not in the community, but it's in the Exonomics Thinkific portal. So I don't want to go too much into that. I know that I need to probably adjust that one so that one comes out a little bit sooner. But these are questions that you guys can throw into the community if you're thinking about home ownership. So how much money should you have saved up after you purchase a home, right? And then how much of your savings are you using to get into the home? Because you're going to have a down payment, and then you may even have closing costs. And if you're working with a good realtor and you're buying a house from somebody, hopefully they can give you some seller's assistance. What credit score do you need to shoot for? Usually it's like, I think if you're trying to get like a VA loan, if you're a veteran, I think it's like a 680 and above, or 640 and above, something like that. But based on the current environment, what type of interest rate are you getting? Is the interest rate causing you to spend a lot more than you need to for your home? If that's the case, does it make sense for you to do it? What's your debt to income ratio? When will you get all the other debts paid off? Right. Understanding the different types of mortgages. I always recommend everybody goes with a 30-year. I don't even include adjustable rate mortgages, short-term mortgages, or anything like that. I feel as though you should go with a 30-year because it's going to give you the smallest monthly payment. If you are, however, say 10 years away from your retirement and you want to ensure that your mortgage is paid off, and that's the main thing that you need to do, then it might make sense to get a 10-year mortgage, right? So you want to budget, and then you want to make sure that you have savings for, if something happens to the roof once you get in there, if something happens to the water heater, it's something you need windows, or something happens to the car. These are the types of things, because when you're renting, you don't have to worry about all those expenses. But once you purchase a home, you do. This is why a lot of people will say your home is not an asset, because there's so many expenses that come with your home. So one of the things that we'll talk about is how you turn the house into an asset. Career changes and job loss. So this is why the emergency fund, again, is important, because if that does happen, because you can't control whether you're going to keep the job or not, and prayerfully all of you have job security, but if not, do you have money saved up until you're able to get another job? So that's kind of building the buffer for loss of potential income. And then what are you doing in terms of building yourself? When it comes to your income will seldomly exceed your personal development. So how marketable are you? How valuable are you to this company? How do you have the skill set, what they need to be able to pay you more money? So what's the preparedness for your transitions, for upskilling and networking? Do you know the right people that can help you get the right type of job, the income that you want? If not, then we need to look at how we can increase your skill set. And then if you're concerned about the job, and potential losses at some point, understanding how unemployment works is crucial, so that if that does happen, that you can immediately go ahead and apply for it. Hopefully your job will maybe provide you a severance package if they decide to lay you off or something like that. That in itself will require additional levels of planning, because now you're getting this lump sum of money that will be taxed. And then you have to make sure that that money will last you until you're able to bring in another income. Health and long-term care planning. So understanding your health insurance options is crucial. Do you need a high deductible plan? If you have a high deductible plan, then you want to incorporate a health savings account. We'll go through health insurance in the insurance section. But planning for long-term care. Now, long-term care is something that I do believe that everybody should eventually look at purchasing, because people are living longer. I think now the life insurance mortality tables are going to 131. Now, when I got started in the business back in 2007, it was the mortality tables were age 100. And so now they're saying, people can live to 131. So long-term care is something that is crucial. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the insurance piece, but that's where you can't complete the 5 acts of daily living and you need assistance. So bathing yourself, clothing yourself, feeding yourself, transferring from one place to another, and then holding your bowels. If you need assistance with any one of those, you're under a long-term care policy situation. And then lastly, estate planning. All right. So estate planning. So the importance of wills and trusts and making sure that your beneficiary designations are correct. I can't stress that enough, because I tell this story a lot, but there was a lady who was a teacher. 2 years into her career, she divorced her husband, got remarried, lived with that man for over 40 some years before she passed away. And when she passed away, she had over $1 million in her retirement account at work. Never changed the beneficiary, and it went to her first husband. And the first husband wasn't giving up none of that $1 million. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen where people don't have the right beneficiaries on there. It might even be a mother or that has passed away, or a father or a sister or something like that. And now you're married, and you just don't want to leave the fact that you hope that these people will give them their money if the beneficiary designations are wrong. Because I'm here to tell you now that if you thinking that's probably not right. Because if somebody left you $25,000, $100,000, $250,000, and they're like, yeah, I was their husband. That money was supposed to be meant for me, but are you going to give it to me? The question would be, would you give it to him if you got $250,000? So making sure that those things are up to date. We're going to go into estate planning very in depth, but planning for wealth transfers and minimizing your estate taxes, and then discussing end of life wishes. So in the estate plan course, where you can get the estate plan set up, all of this is done for you at a very affordable cost. And you can get your estate plan done as being a part of this community. There is a separate cost for it, which you'll see when you get access to that part of the program. So As always, we're still kind of in the overview section just as a financial newbie, and as we keep getting into some of these additional modules, we're going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and give you some additional strategies as we move forward. But as always, I pray that this bless your life. I'll catch you in the next video.